Hello, it's Ruby, and today I'm going to be doing a What I Read in April video. So the first book I read was the Hard Choices Memoirs of Hillary Clinton, and I am a massive fan of Hillary Clinton. I think she's just such an inspirational woman. I really enjoyed reading about her time as Secretary of State under Obama's presidency. It's fairly heavy, but not so much that it's not accessible. The next book I read was M is for Magic, which is a collection of short stories by Neil Gaiman. Perhaps these were a little too young for me, actually, thinking about it, but I love Neil Gaiman's work. I think he is just incredible. You've got this real sense of magic in everything that he says. It's quite grotesque. I mean, think of Coraline. It's that kind of distorted view of the world. I think that this would be ideal for maybe children between 9 and 14, but yes, I would probably extend it all the way up to 18. The next book I read was We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. It was completely and utterly haunting. It's quite a famous novel, but I'll just give you a brief synopsis of what happens. It's about a boy called Kevin who, 3 days short of his 16th birthday, he conducts a school shooting at his school and kills 7 people and 1 cafeteria worker. And it's written from the perspective of the mum, and she's reflecting on Kevin's childhood and how he behaved as a child, and it is just incredible. A psychological thriller. I love reading books which have that psychological element to them as well because they're so much more interesting, and if you're the same as me, then I think you are going to adore this book. But it is haunting. The next book I read was 13 Minutes by Sara, which is definitely teen fiction. It's very light. I read it in an evening and a morning. Well, the book is about a girl who is found in a river, and she's declared dead for 13 minutes. But then she does come back to life after that. And it's kind of trying to figure out what killed her, what happened to her, and why she ended up in that river. So it's a murder mystery for teenagers, really. The one thing that put me off it was the fact that there is a lot of incessant swearing and reference to drugs and alcohol, and that's not really something that I can relate with, so that put me off it, but the storyline in itself was interesting. The next book, well, it's actually a play, but it's called Huis Clos, which is by Jean-Paul Sartre. And this is very short. It took me about a car journey to read. But it's exploring the idea of hell. We referenced it in RS, so I decided to read it. It's from this that the famous quote, "Hell as other people" is derived, which is very famous. I'm sure you've heard of that line. But I recommend this. It's philosophical, and if you love philosophy, then you will adore it. The next thing that I read is actually an essay, but I'm including it in books because it was quite long. It's exploring Dante in 17th century literature, because Dante wasn't really a prominent part of 17th century literature, and so the academic is trying to pinpoint places where he actually does appear in the writings of novelists and poets during this period, and it's just really interesting. The next book is The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. I loved it. It's such a beautiful story. It's really heartwarming. It's about a young girl called Lily. I think she's 14, and she has an abusive father, and she runs away with her black friend, and they go and live in the house of this beekeeper. It explores racism, really how horrible people can be. I read the Penguin Little Black classic of Dante, which is Circles of Hell. So this has got a few passages from Inferno, and since we were learning about this in RS, I thought it would be quite a good thing to read, and I've come up with some really good quotes now for essays, and also it's just really interesting actually to analyse, because it's more a piece of kind of fiction that you can analyse as a piece of literature as opposed to just one philosophical idea. I'm going to have to be quite quick because my camera is nearly out of charge. The next book I read is Spot the Difference by Juno Dawson, which is one of the World Book Day books. So it's really short. I read it again in a car journey, and it's about bullying, which is why I decided to read it. Then I read the book In Therapy by Susie Orbach. Orbach has written up a series of sessions between therapist and patient, and then you can just read through it to understand a bit more about therapy, and I thought it was really interesting. I read The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis, which of course is very famous, but I never read the Narnia Chronicles when I was little. I only ever read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Then the last book I read was The Mystery of the Clockwork Sparrow by Catherine Woodfine, and this was an incredible book. It was rather easy. I did find it quite easy. It's set in Victorian England, and this is possibly my favourite period of history. I love reading Victorian literature, so Dickens is one of my favourites. But I also like reading modern books which are set in the Victorian period. There's something really calming and comforting with the reference to petticoats and handkerchiefs. So this book is about a new department store which is set to be opening called St Clair's, but the night before the grand opening, some precious artefacts from the exhibition room mysteriously go missing, amongst them the Clockwork Sparrow, and it's a mystery trying to uncover who took them. I hear that this is quite similar to Murderers Most Unladylike, but I definitely recommend this. It's a really light read, but I don't think you'll regret it. So that's all of the books that I read last month. I hope that you enjoyed watching, and I hope that you decided to read some of these books yourselves. So thank you again, and have a productive week.